All of tea thrown to a garbage bag like trash. Jennifer didn't even look at the pieces, didn't pause to consider the fair sentimental value. To her, they were just objects to be converted into cash. Downstairs, down went straight to my home. Office. The office where Robert used to do our taxes every April, where he'd spent hours carefully organizing our financial documents, where I'd spent months after shit off trying to understand our finances and figure out how to manage everything alone. Dn't went directly to my fanzine cabinet. He knew exactly which drawer, exactly where to look. He'd probably snooped through my fanza during previous fets, planning these robbery while pretending to care about me. He pulled out folders, tax returns showing my social security. Bank statements showing my modest salary. Knock-ins, the money Robert and I had carefully put away for decades. Investment records showing the small portfolio Robert had built, nothing fancy, just conservative mutual funds and bonds. The deed to my house, the property Robert and I had bought with every penny we had, that we'd paid off slowly over 30 years. Got off, the stars, his voice full of trump. The house deed's here. Once Mom sangs this over to us, we can sell this place for at least $600,000, maybe more. The market's hot right now, plus the furniture, the appliances, everything. We're looking at $700,000 from the house alone. Jennifer came running down with 3 garbage bags full of my belongings. What about the furniture? There's a lot of valuable stuff here. That dining room table, a sold oak, real wood, not veneer, and the china cabinet, and all the furnishing up in the lopping room. The anyth clock, all of Robert's tools in the garage. David looked around, calculating, doing math in his head. We'll come back for the furniture after she sends everything over. Once she's home from the hostel, we'll move her into our guest room. Like we planned, we'll tell her she needs constant care during recovery. We'll control her medications, keep her drowsy and compliant. Once she sings the house over and the power of attorney, we can sell everything and put her in one of those cheap nursing homes. And my dad had fancied, Jennifer added, lying. One of the really bad ones. Why waste money on a nice place? She won't know the difference. I felt Sarah's hand on my shoulder, squeezing gently. I'm sorry, Margaret. I'm so sorry you have to see this. Are you okay? Do you need a break? No, I said, my voice cold and steady. I need to see all of 10. I need to know exactly who they are. We watched for another hour as they systematically looted my house. They took Robert's military medals from sauce, the Bronze Star he'd earned in Vietnam. The medals he'd been so proud of, but had kept in a drawer because he wasn't the type to brag. They took our wedding photo from the mantel, the silver frame worth something. Apparently, they took the silverware from the kitchen drawer, real silver, that had been my grandmother's. They even took small vasangs, decorative objects that had sentimental value, but probably weren't worth much money. They were thorough, greedy, ruthless. At one point, Jennifer held up a small wooden box from my nightstand. What's that open tent? Instead were Robert's dog tags from Hassan, military service. Hosp wedding ring that I'd removed from Hassan at the funeral home, because I couldn't bear to bury tent with him, and a letter he'd written me before he died. David glanced at the contents and tossed the box out onto the floor. Nothing valuable, leave it. That hurt more than the jewelry, more than the house deed, more than any of Robert's dog tags meant nothing to David. Haas' grandfather's wedding ring meant nothing. That letter, those final words from a father to a mother about the son, meant nothing. Finally, after an hour and 15 minutes, they seemed sated. They'd filled 5 bags with stolen property and had loaded all into David's car. Okay, Dad, checking Haas' watch, one more tenny. We need to get back to the hostel. Mom should be in recovery soon. We need to be there when she wakes up. looking worried and supported. What about the canving money? Jasper asked, when do we get that? I'll text Mingao as soon as we're back at the hostel. He's wassing for my sangle. He'll arrange pickup tent after Mom's transferred to her regular room. The buyer's plane was already wassing at a profit a Said. Mingao. Saad will have the 200,000 read to our offshore account within 24 hours. Sarah was on her Radoween David. Did you get that? Admin's on of conspiracy to traffic human organs. Mingao's name. Offshore account. That's federal jury do. That's what we needed. They were about to leave my house when Dabdag's phone rang. He looked at the screen, and his face went white. It's the hostel, he said, his voice suddenly pant. Answered. Jennifer hast, he answered, putting weighty on speaker. Hello, Mr. Patterson, this is Dr. Reeves from CD Hostel. I need you to come back to Mendale. There's been a complaint upon, with your mother's surgery. Dabdag's hands started shaking. He almost dropped the phone. What kind of complaint upon? Is she okay? What happened? I can't degascut over the phone for prophecy reasons. You need to come back to the hostel right away. He hung up. Dabdag and Jennifer stared at each other. Oh God, Jennifer said. Jennifer hearing her voice now. What if something went wrong? What if she dead on the operating table? If she dead, Dabdag said slowly. And I watched his face as he processed this posset. If she dead, then we don't need her to sign wing. Anyway, just need a wall that leaves everything to me. Her only child. Natural inheritance. Do we have a wall? No, but I can create one. I've been practicing her signature for weeks. I can forge her signature on a wall dated last month. We say we found ill. Not on her desk. Who's going to question? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They weren't worried about me. They were calculating how to profit from my death. The first thought wasn't gruff or concern. It was opportunity. All unthodes move man, now Sarah commanded Gato. Her readily do. Suspects are leaving the residence. Intercept them 3 blocks from the hostel. Execute all warrants. I want this done clean and by the book. We watched on the GPS as Dabdag's car pulled away from my house. 3 blocks later, on a quiet resident, Elmwood Street, 3 unmarked Sopka cars surrounded them. Lights flashing. Unformed adversaries approached with guns drawn. Dabdag and Jennifer's faces, through the windshield, were stuck in shock and panting. What happens now? I asked Sarah. Now they're arrested, Reddale writes, and taken to the station. The Sopka car pounded and searched. We inventory everything they stole from your house. And you bet on whether you want to press charges, or whether you want to give them one chance to confess and show remorse. I want to see them, I said, face to face, before they get lawyers. I want to look them in the eye. 2 hours later, I was sopping in a plann interrogation room at the police station. Gray walls, metal table, uncomfortable chairs. I'd changed out of my hostel gown back into my regular clothes. I wasn't weak. I wasn't recovering from surgery. I was perfectly healthy, completely alert, and absolutely in control. The door opened. Dabdag walked in, first in handcuffs. His face completely white, and eyes wide with shock and confusion. Mom? But you were in surgery. Your kidney. What? How are you here? Step down, Dabdag. He sat like a robot, and's movements. Meckham, he couldn't process what he was seeing. He couldn't process what he was seeing. Our understanding of reality had just shattered. Jennifer was brought next. When she saw me sitting there, healthy and whole, she started crying mentally. Margaret, please let us explain. The stone it looks like. We weren't really going to. Stop, I said quietly. and the single word cut through her protest like a knife. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending this was anything other than what it was. I watched you. I heard you. Every word, every acto, it's all on camera. All on auto recording. All documented, there's no explaining this away. Dad had found his voice. Mom, please, you have to understand. We're in debt, those. Serious debt. Jennifer's spending got completely out of control. We owe $180,000 in credit card debt. We're 3 months behind and on the mortgage. The bank is going to foreclose. We were desperate. So your solution was to mutilate your own mother and rob her blind. That was your plan for dealing with debt. Not getting second jobs, not cutting expenses, not asking me for help, honestly. Not filing bankruptcy, it was that bad. You chose to lie about dadding, to trick me into major surgery, to sell my organs to criminals, to steal everything your father and I built, and to put me in a cheap nursing home where I'd rot. That was your solution. You don't understand the pressure we're under. Chopper burst out. You don't know what it's like. The bulls, the expectones, trying to keep up appearances, trying to give our kids everything they need. You're right, I said calmly. I don't know what it's like to be you. Because when your father and I were drowning debt after buying our first house, when we had more bills than money, when we didn't know how we'd feed our baby, some months we didn't steal from our parents. We took second jobs, we ate rice and beans. We sold things we didn't need. We worked harder. We lived below our means. We made sacrifices. We didn't look at the people who loved us and see walking ATM machines to be exploded and discarded. What are we supposed to do now? Jennifer sobbed. They're saying we could go to parents and for 10 years. Our kids will grow up without parents. How could you do to your own grandchildren? How could I? I stood up, my voice and the first to me. How could I? I'm not the one who planned to mutilate the war grandmother and sell her organs. I'm not the one who robbed her house while she was supposedly in surgery. I'm not the one who planned to drug her and forge her signature. You did that, both of you. You made those choices. Don't you dare try to blame me for the consequences of your own actions. Jabed slumped forward, his head in his cuffed hands. Mom, please, I'm begging you. Don't press charges, we'll pay you back. We'll do whatever you want, just please don't send us to parents. Think about Emma and Lucas, they need the war parents. Emma already knows what you were planning, I said quietly. She's the one who warned me. Your near-a-year-old daughter rode her back 3 miles to my house to tell me what she overheard. She was scared getting in trouble to protect me. She chose to do the right thing, even though it meant her parents would face consequences. So don't talk to me about Emma and Lucas needing the war parents. They need parents who have integrity, who make good choices, who show them how to be decent human beings. Right now, you're not those parents. Emma knows. Jennifer's face went even paler. She heard us. Oh God, what must she think of us? She thinks you're monsters, I said bluntly. Because that's what you are. You planned to cut open the woman who gave birth to you, Dav, the woman who nursed you, and raised you, and sacrificed for you. You were willing to let me undergo major surgery, with all its orcas, so you could profit. Do you have any low idea how evil that is? Detective Sarah opened the door. Mrs. Patterson, have you made your decision? Do you want to press charges? I looked at my son, the baby I had carried for 9 months, the toddler whose first steps I'd celebrated, the little boy whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, the teenager I'd stayed up late, worrying about, the young man I'd sent off into the world with my bludgeoning and my love. Yes, I said, I'm pressing all charges, every single one. Mom, no, please. Dad lunged forward, but the handcuffs and the guards stopped him. We're family. You can't do this to family. I'm your son. You stopped being my family the moment you died. Dead to harvest my organs like I was livestock. I said, my voice steady and cold. You stopped being my family when you planned to rob the house your father and I built together. You stopped being my family when you valued money more than my life. You're not my son anymore. You're just a criminal who happens to share my DNA. Jennifer was screaming now, her voice shrill and desperate. Margaret, please, think of the children. Emma and Lucas need the forefather. You can't take the forefather away from them. Emma and Lucas need to learn that actions have consequences. They need to learn that before they grow up, thinking they can treat people the way you've treated me. They need to see that the far grandmother refused to be a victim. Maybe that will teach them something about self-respect and de-branding. I walked toward the door, done with this conversation, done with these people. What? David yelled. What about your kidney? Are you even stirk? Was David ever stirk? Was any of this real? I turned back one last knee. I'm perfectly healthy. Dav, both my kidneys function just fine. The doctors say I'll probably live another 20 years, maybe more, long enough to watch you get out of prison and hopefully rebuild your life into something decent, long enough to be there for Emma and Lucas when they're old enough to understand what the four parents did, long enough to make sure they never become people like you, long enough to show them that love isn't about blood, maybe it's about choices, and you made very bad choices. I hate you. Jennifer screamed, struggling against the offer holding her. You're a spiteful, ventive, old woman. You set us up. You trapped us. No, I said calmly. I gave you every opportunity to do the right thing. I gave you a chance to tell me the truth. To admit to David wasn't Steve, to ask for help. Honestly, you didn't take it. You chose this path at every step. All I did was refuse to be your victim. All I did was protect myself. There's a difference between that and inventiveness. I walked out of the interrogating room. The door closed behind me, cutting off Jennifer's screaming and David's pleading. In the hallway, I had to lean against the wall for a moment. My legs were shaking badly. Now that was over, now that I'd actually done it, the adrenaline was wearing off, and the full emotional weight of what had just happened was hitting me like a truck. My son was going to prison. My grandchildren would grow up with incarcerated parents. I had just destroyed what was left of my family. Sarah put her arm around me, supporting me. You did the right thing, Margaret. I know that doesn't feel like it right now, but you did the right thing. I know, I whispered, but it still hurts. It hurts so much. Of course it hurts. He's your son. But you're also protecting yourself and your grandchildren. You're showing Emma and Lucas that no one, not even family, not even parents, gets to abuse you without consequences. That's an important lesson. 3 weeks later, I was back in my garden, planting tomatoes, the same tomatoes I'd been planting when this nightmare began. Every time David and Jennifer had stolen had been returned to me and was back in its proper place. My jewelry box was on my dresser. Robert's medals were Tanny's office. The house deed was on my filing cabinet. Everything was exactly as Tuin had been, except nothing would ever be the same. Emma and Lucas were living temporarily with Jennifer's parents, while David and Jennifer awaited Tran. I visited them 3 a week, taking them to the park, helping with homework, just being there for them. Emma always hugged me, extra tat when I arrived. Grandma, are you okay? She'd ask every single Timmy, her voice worried. I'm fun, sweetheart. Better than fun. I'm proud of you. You were so brave. Are Mommy and Daddy really going to jail? Yes, honey. For a while, because they made very bad choices. Very serious, bad choices. They planned to hurt me and steal from me. And those are crimes. When you do crimes, you face consequences. Is it my fault? Her voice was so small, because I told you what I heard. I knelt down to her level, taking her face and my hands. Listen to me, very carefully, Emma. None of this Ya's your fault. Not one bit. Your parents are going to jail because of choices they made, not because of anything you did. You did the right thing. You protected someone who couldn't protect themselves. That's what heroes do. That's what brave people do. I'm so proud of you. But Lucas, Yaofeng Khan, to grow up without his parents. And dented because I told, no, sweetheart. Lucas, Yaofeng, to grow up without at least two parents, because they chose to commit crimes. You chose to stop them from hurting me. Those are very different things. You saved me, Emma. You saved my life. She craned to my shoulder for a long time while I held her. My lawyer Thomas called me with updates about the case. David and Jennifer had been charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted grand theft, conspiracy to traffic human organs, and elder abuse. They were looking at 8 to 12 years in prison. Each have convicted on all charges. They want to take a plea deal, Thomas told me over the phone. Officer lawyer contacted the DA. They're willing to plead guilty to reduce charges in exchange for 5 years each. The DO wants to know if you'll agree to. I thought about it for a long time. I thought about Emma and Lucas, who would be 14 and 12 when the far parents got out. They served 5 years. Still children, but at least they'd have some chance of rebuilding a relation with their parents. Tell the DA, I'll agree to the plea deal on 3 conditions, I said. First, David and Jennifer must complete parenting classes while in prison, real classes, the real counselors. Second, they must undergo intensive therapy to understand what they did and why. The redouts, when they get out, they are never to contact me again unless I know state contact. Emma and Lucas can see me whenever they want, as often as they want, but David and Jeff and Pierre have no access to me. They burned that bridge. The plea deal was accepted. David and Jennifer were sentenced to 5 years each, and separate prisons. They would be eligible for parole after serving 3.5 years, with good behavior. A few months after the sentencing, I found a letter. It had been forwarded from the prison to my lawyer's office. Thomas called me about Margaret, David has written you a letter. It came to my office because he doesn't have your current address. Do you want me to send it to you? What does it say? I haven't opened. It's addressed to you. It's your choice whether you want to read it. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to know what he had to say. Part of me wanted him to apologize, to explain, to show some remorse. But another part of me knew that nothing he could say would change what he'd done. No, I said. Finally. Returned it unopened. If he has something to say to me, he can say it when he gets out. If he's actually changed, if he's actually done the work to become a better person, but I won't be his emotional support. While he's paying for what he did, he needs to set the consequences of his actions without me making it easier for him. That's very strong of you, Margaret, Thomas said. A lot of mothers wouldn't be able to do that. I've spent 68 years taking care of other people, putting everyone else's needs before my own, setting myself on fire to keep others warm. I'm done with that. I'm finally taking care of myself. It's about Nosti. Today, nearly a year after everything happened, I'm sitting in my garden again. The tomatoes are thriving. Emma's here helping me plant roses along the fence. Lucas, chasing butterflies with the net I bought him, laughing as they fluttered just out of his reach. Grandma, Emma asks quietly, as she pats Sol around a rosebush. Do you still love Daddy? I think about this carefully, wanting to give her an honest answer. I love the little boy he used to be. I love the memories of teaching him to read a book and reading him bidding Putney stories. I love remembering him as a child, before things went wrong, but the man he became, the man who tried to hurt me. I don't know that person, and I don't have to love someone just because we share blood. Love fawns about choices. Emma, You choose to love people based on how they treat you, how they treat others, whether they're kind and honest and good. Your father made choices that showed me he didn't really love me, not the way families should love each other. That makes sense, she says thoughtfully. My teacher says, love's a verb, not just a feeling. It's something you do, not just something you feel. Your teacher is very wise. Love's absolutely a verb. It's showing up. It's being there. It's protecting people. It's making sacrifices. It's choosing someone over and over again, even when it's hard. Luck you do. For me and Lucas, she says. Exactly, luck that. And luck you did. For me when you rode your bike to my house, to warn me, that was love. Nand Abdullah. Emma's quiet for a moment, then asks, Grandma, can I tell you something important? Always, sweetheart, you can tell me anything. Finally, satin about blood, it's fate, it's about who shows up, who's there, who chooses you. I smile, pulling her to a hug. You're absolutely right. That's exactly what family. Then you're more my family than mommy and daddy ever were, because you actually show up. You actually care. You actually listen to me. And you're my family too, Emma. You and Lucas both. You're the best part of my family. I'll always choose you, Grandma, she says firstly, hugging me tight. And I'll always choose you, sweetheart. No matter what. Lucas runs over with Hortus butterfly net. His face flushed and happy. Grandma, look, I caught a monarch butterfly. It's so pretty. That's beautiful, Lucas. Now let's let go so it can fly home to its family. He opens the net carefully, and we watch the butterfly soar into the sky, its orange and black wings catching the sunlight as it flees higher in its family. Got here, free and unharmed. Just like me. After 68 years of putting everyone else first, after decades of sacrificing my own needs and desires, after a life of being what everyone needed me to be, I'm finally free. Free from gold. Free from oblivion. Free from toxic fam. Toxicity session banners of something to use rather than someone to love. I'm free, and it feels amazing. Did you like my story? Which Soleil are you listening from? Let's meet you in the comments. If this story touched your heart, you can support me with a super fam. Thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your support. I'm looking forward to your comments. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect. The anesthesia needle was inserted from my arm. In 3 minutes, they would take my kidney for my dying son. Then a tiny voice beyond the curtain. Where's Bird? Grandma, Daddy sent it sec. He's gonna sell your kidney and use the surgery to steal your house. My name's Margaret. I'm 68 years old, and what I'm about to tell you will make you question everything you think you know about family, loyalty. If this story touches your heart, please like and subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I want to know how far this truth travels. It started 3 weeks ago. I was in my garden, planting tomatoes in the small backyard of the house. My late husband Robert and I bought 42 years ago. The same house where I raised my son David. The same house where every room holds a memory of laughter, birthday parties, and family diners around our old oak table. The garden had always been my sanctuary. Robert and I had planted that first tomato plant together, the summer we moved in back in 1982. I was 26 years old then, young and full of dreams about the future we would build together. Robert was 28, fresh out of his apprenticeship as an electrician, and we had just enough money saved for a down payment on this modest 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood on the east side of town. I remember standing in this exact spot, my hand in Robert's, looking at the bare dad and making what would become. The sky was hard and rocky back then, nodding like the dark earth I work with now, after decades of composting and care. One day Robert had said, squeezing my hand, "This garden will feed our family. Our coddeds will play here. Our grandkids will learn to plant seeds right here, in this spot." He had this way of seeing the future so clearly, like he could reach out and touch it. He was right about everything, except one thing. He didn't live long enough to see those grandkids learn to plant seeds. He didn't live long enough to see Emma's face light up the first of me. She grew her own tomato. He didn't live long enough to teach Lucas how to pull weeds without disturbing the roots. Robert died 4 years ago, heart attack, sudden. No warning. He was fixing a light fixture for our neighbor Mrs. Chen when he just collapsed. By the time the ambulance bed, he was gone. Just like that, 40 years of marriage, 40 years of shared dreams, and quiet mornings, and adult jokes, ended in a moment. 1 second he was here, the next he wasn't, and the world just kept turning, like nodding. Had changed even though everything had changed. After he died, this garden became even more important to me. Every tomato plant was a conversation with Robert. Every rosebush was a memory of a moment we'd shared. Every morning I spent out here with my hands, and the sowing was a way of keeping him alive, of feeling close to him again. Smith, I'd talk to him while I worked, telling him about my day, about David and the grandkids, about the neighbors. I know it probably sounds crazy, but made me feel less alone. My phone rang that morning, interrupting my thoughts. I pulled off my garden gloves, wammed the rod in my jeans, and saw David's name on the screen. My heart did that little jump it always does when your child calls, no matter how old they get, even when they're 43 years old, with coddeds of their own. They're still your baby. That will never change. "Mom, I need to see you. It's urgent." Voice sounded strange, tired, scared. In all his 43 years, I'd only heard him sound like this a handful of times. When he broke his arm, falling out of a tree at age 8, when he got rejected from hymns, first chose college, when Jumper had complications during Lucas's birth. "Of course, honey. Are you okay? Are the coddeds okay?" My mind immediately went to worst-case scenarios. Car accident, hospital, emergency. Just, "I need to see you, in person. Can I come over right now? I'll put the kettle on." I always made tea when something was wrong. It was what my mother had done, and her mother before her. Some traditions you keep because they bring comfort. 20 minutes later he was sitting in my living room, with coddeds, one Jumper. They both looked terrible. Jumper's eyes were red and swollen from crying, her mascara smudged under her eyes. David couldn't look at me directly. He was starting at the floor, at the same cream carpet where he used to play with Haddad's toy cars, as a little boy, making ananoses and creating elaborate magnary coddeds. I sat down across from them, Robert's old armchair, my heart racking. Whatever they were about to tell me, what it bad, really bad, what's going on? "You're scarring me." "Mom," he said, his voice breaking on the word, "I need to tell you something. I'm dying." The world stopped. Tommy seemed to freeze. Everything went silent, except for the sound of my own heartbeat pounding, and my ears like a drum. I felt like I was underwater, like all the hour had been sucked out of the room, and I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what I'd just heard. "What?" I whispered. My voice didn't sound like my own. It sounded small and broken. "Kidney failure," he said, and I watched his mouth form the words, like I was watching a move. "Stage 5, end-stage renal disease. The doctors say I have maybe 6 months without a transplant, a year at most. I'm on the waiting list. Meds could take 3, 4, 5 years to get a kidney. Years I don't have, Mom. I don't have that, Tommy." I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. My baby was dying. The little boy I had nursed through chickenpox and held through nightmares and cheered for at every baseball game was dying. The young man I had sent off to college with a care package full of Habit's favorite snacks and tears, and my eyes was dining. The father of my two precious grandchildren was dining. My son, my only child, dining. Jumper grabbed my hand across the coffee table. Her grip was tight, almost dining full. Her fingernails dining, and to my scum. Margaret, we're desperate, we've tested everyone. His brothers, his cousins, his uncle, even me. Nobody's a match, nobody. You're our last hope, you're the only family member we haven't tested yet. Of course, I sat him down. The words came out, automatically, instinctively, before my brain could even process what I was agreeing to. My voice didn't even sound like my own. It was automatum, pure maternal, and stemmed decoding, over. Of course I'll get tested, when? Today, right now, I'll go to the hospital right now. I'll do whatever it takes, whatever you need. David's face relaxed for the first time. Since he'd arrived, some of the tendon left his shoulders, and he let out a breath I didn't realize he'd been holding. Thank you, Mom. Thank you so much. I knew you'd say yes. I knew I could count on you. You've always been there for me. Always. And I knew you wouldn't let me down now. I'm your mother, I said, reaching across to take his hand. It felt cold and mown. Clammy, with sweat. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you. Nothing das world. You're my son. I would give you both my dining. His fanning could. I would give you my heart. Thought it would save you. Jumper started crying again. But this time, they seemed like tears of relief rather than despair. You're saving our family, Margaret. You're saving everything. Emma and Lucas. They need the worth father. They're so young. They need him. I need my husband. I can't lose him. I can't raise those kids alone. We sat there for a long moment, the three of us, holding hands across my coffee table. The same table where we played board games when David was little. The same table where Robert and I had done saw puzzles on Town. Evenings. The same table where Emma and Lucas colored pictures for me every time they rested. The next day I went to the hospital for testing. I had barely slept the night before. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw David as a baby, as a toddler, as a teenager. I kept thinking about how I would feel if I lost him. The same way I felt when I lost Robert, like a piece of my soul had been wrapped away, leaving a hole that would never heal. Like the world had lost all its color, and I was just going through the motions of living, without actually being all. The hostel was cold and sterile, all white walls and fluorescent lights, and that destinic smell of disinfectant that makes my stomach turn. I've always hated hostels. Robert destined a hostel. My mother destined a hostel. My father destined a hostel. Hostels are where people go to leave you forever. They took what felt like a dozen vials of blood. The nurse who drew my blood was young, maybe in her mastinotis, with kind brown eyes and a gentle touch. She tied the tourniquet around my arm and tapped my vein, making small talk to distract me from the needle. You're a good mother, she said as she labeled the vials carefully, writing my name and date of birth on each one. Not everyone would do this. I've worked in transplant medicine for 3 years, and you'd be sad how many people refuse to get tested, even for the sharing children. He's my son, I replied, watching my blood fail. After Valois, what else would I do? What kind of mother would I be if I said no? She smiled sadly, a look in her eyes that said she'd seen things, terrible things. You'd be surprised. I've seen families torn apart over things like this. Money, fear, selfishness. People who are scared of surgery. People who think they might need the faculty someday, but you didn't even hesitate. Your son is very lucky to have you. When you become a parent, I told her, pressing cotton to my arm after the last valve was filled, your life stops being about you. It becomes about them. From the moment they're born, you'd throw yourself in front of a tram for them, without thing, toss. A kidney, that's not tran, compared to what I'd give for my son. She patted my hand before putting a bandage over the needle mark. Your son, Taraz, lucky to have you, she repeated softly. I went home and waited, 3 days of waiting. 3 days of barely eating, barely sleeping, barely able to focus on anything else. I kept my phone with me every second, jumping every tedney rang, my heart racking, every tedney I saw an unknown number. I couldn't watch TV, couldn't read, couldn't even work in my garden. All I could do was wait and pray. On the third day, the call finally came. Mrs. Patterson, this is Doc Reeves from CD Hostel. I have your test results. My heart stopped. I couldn't breathe. Yes, tell me. Please just tell me. You're a perfect match. Hop's voice was warm, almost excited. Your kidneys compatible with your son's. Your blood type matches. Your tissue markers match. Your antibodies match. Everything matches. It's actually quite remarkable. I've rarely seen such a perfect match between parent and child. We can schedule the surgery for next week, if you're ready. I'm ready, I said without hesitation. Tears streaming down my face. Rail flooded through me, like a wave. I could save Eam. I could actually save my son's life. I'm ready, right now, today, whenever you need me. Tomorrow, if you want. Dr. Reeves laughed gently. Kindly. I appreciate your enthusiasm, Mrs. Patterson, and your courage, but we need to do a few more tests. First, to make sure you're healthy enough for surgery. This is major surgery, and we need to make sure your body can handle bales. You'll come in tomorrow for a full physical. We need to check your heart, your lungs, your blood pressure. We need to make sure your other kidneys functioning at 100%, because we'll have to do the work of 2 kidneys after the donating tone. We need to make sure you're strong enough to handle the recovery. I'm strong enough, I said firmly. Wiping my tears, I'm strong enough. I'm healthier than most people, half my age. I work in my garden. Every day. I walk 3 miles every morning. I'm strong. I'm sure you are, Mrs. Patterson. We just need to make absolutely certain. This surgery carries seams, and we need to make sure you understand those rough and that you're physically capable of handling them. That evening, Dad and Jennifer came over with champagne and a huge bouquet of flowers, roses, and lads, and Dad says, Dad was smiling wetter than I'd seen. He my smiling years, maybe it's he my wedding day. He hugged me so tight I could barely breathe, lifting me off my feet like he used to do when he was a teenager, showing off his strength. To Mom, he said, rotzing Sed's class. The woman who's giving me a second chance at life. The woman who's saving me. I don't even have words for how grateful I am. I love you so much, Mom. So much. Jennifer hugged me next, crying into my shoulder. You're saving our family, Margaret. Our kids will have the parther because of you. They'll grow up with the pards of Dad. They'll have him at the weddings, at the hairdressings, at every birthday and holiday because of you. Because you're willing to do this incredible, brave thing. We sat around my kitchen table, the same table where I'd served Dotted breakfast before school for 18 years, the same table where Robert and I had shared our morning coffee and read the newspaper together for 40 years. The same table where Emma and Lucas colored pictures for me every teamy they vested, the wet air, little tongues stalking out, and concentration as they carefully stayed in lights. Mom, Dotted said, reaching across to take my hand again, I want you to know something. After this surgery, after I'm recovered, the weddings are going to be different. I'm going to be a better son. I'm going to voted more, not just on holidays. I'm going to call you every day. I'm going to help you around the house, like I should have been doing all along. I'm going to mow your lawn and fix things that are broken and make sure you're never alone. I'm going to make sure you never regret this. You don't have to promise me anything, I said, squeezing his hand. I'm not doing this for gratitude or payback. I'm not doing this as, you'll owe me something. I'm doing it because I love you, because you're my son, and I would do anything for you. But Jennifer was nodding enthusiastically, agreeing with Dad. No, Margaret, he's right. We've both been so caught up in our own lives, work and the kids and everything else. We haven't been there for you the way we should have been. And especially after Robert. You've been so alone, and we should have been checking on you more. And vetting you over more. Including you in our lives more. That's going to change. I promise you. That's going to change. It was true. After Robert died, I'd seen less and less of Dad and Jennifer and the kids. At first, they came over every week, bringing casseroles and helping me sort through Robert's things, and just sitting with me so I wouldn't be alone. Then every other week, then once a month, then just whole days. Last Christmas, they'd stayed for exactly 2 hours before Dad decided they needed to get home because Lucas had a birthday party the next morning, and they needed to wrap presents. The weddings will be different, Dad promised again, and eyes locked on mine. And that made me want to be alive. You'll see, I'm going to be the son I should have been, all along. The week before the surgery was filled with appointments. Medical appointments, legal appointments, psychological appointments. Jennifer was always there, helping me with paperwork, doctorial appointments, when Dad was supposedly too sick to come along. She was attentive, almost hovering. She'd arrive at my house exactly on time for each appointment, some even early. She'd help me into the car, like I was already fragile, holding my elbow and opening doors for me. She'd hold my hand at the wedding rooms, squeezing reassuringly. You're so good to help me with all this, I told her one afternoon, as we drove home from yet another pre-op appointment. I know you must be exhausted with everything that's going on. Taking care of Dad, taking care of the kids, and now taking care of me too. It's the least I can do, she said, her voice sweet and warm. Maybe too sweet. Looking back now, I can hear the falseness in. But at the time, I thought she was just being kind. You're giving my husband his love back. You're giving my children their father, helping you through this process. And nothing compared to that. It's the absolute least I can do. One of the appointments was with a social worker, a hospital requirement, they explained. They needed to make sure I understood what I was doing, and that I wasn't then pressured or coerced into downing. That dream coated, with gray hair cut short, and sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to see right through me. Tajri sat across from me, in a small windowless office, with a cluttered in her lap. Miss Patterson, I need to ask you some questions. They might seem intrusive or unnecessary, but they're actually very important. Is that okay with you? Of course, ask me anything. First question. Are you donning your candidate involuntarily? Has anyone pressured you or forced you into this all-on? Yes, it's completely voluntary. My son, studying. I'm his mother. This is what mothers do. This is what love looks like. Patricia made a note on her clipboard. Has anyone threatened you or coerced you in any way? Has anyone offered you money or other compensation for your cutting? No, nothing like that. I would never take money from my son. He's my child. You don't charge your children for saving the loves. More notes. Do you understand the words of the surgery? The potental competence. Yes, Dr. Reeves explained everything very thoroughly. There's a worksum of fucking at the Prenton. Datre satin. There's a worksum of bleeding during or after surgery. There's a worksum of blood clots forming in my legs or lungs. There's a small worksum about 1 and 3,000, that I could do during the surgery. After the surgery, I'll have to be very careful with my remingcadidum for the rest of my life. I'll need to avoid certain medications that can damage cadidins, lead catiprofen, and naproxen. I'll need to stay hydrated. I'll need regular checkups to make sure my remingcadidins functioning properly. I'll have a slightly higher risk of developing cardiac disease myself later in life. I understand all of that, and I'm willing to accept those words. Patridis nodded, seeming satisfied with my answer. And you're willing to accept all those words? I think second thoughts or doubts? I'd accept any resect to save my son's life. I'd accept a much higher reside than 1 and 3,000. I'd accept a 50-50 chance, and fast meant saving him. Patry studied me for a long moment, her pen hovering over her clapboard. Mrs. Patterson, I have to ask you something else, and I want you to be completely honest with me. Do you have any concerns about what will happen after the surgery? Any worries about how your son and daughter-in-law will treat you during your recovery and afterward? The question surprised me. It seemed to come out of nowhere. What do you mean? Why would I have concerns about that? Some after a loving dynasty, family dynamics change in unexpected ways. The recipient might feel overwhelming guilt about what the daughter went through. That guilt can sometimes manifest as resentment or avoidance, or the recipient might feel entitled to the donor owes them even more. The donor might feel resentful if they don't receive the gratitude or care they expected during recovery. There can be tatum broken relatory and pre-tatumson broken relationships. I just want to make sure you've thought about the possibility that your related with your son might change after this, and not necessarily for the better. I haven't thought about tate. I had done it honestly, but I don't think there will be any problems. David has promised he'll be there for me during recovery. He promised he'll take care of me. Cassie made another note, but something in her expression told me she wasn't underlying comments. That's good. That's very good. Because you're going to need someone and help. That recovery from fees surgery takes X to 8 weeks. Menton thing. The first 2 weeks, you'll be very weak. You won't be able to lift anything heavier than 10 pounds. You won't be able to dive. You'll need help with Bastin's tasks, like cooking, cleaning, bathing. You'll need someone to help you change your bandages and monitor your untouched for sons. Dad, do you have someone who can do all of that for you? Dad or son? I could stay with them after I'm released from the hostel. They have a guest room on the first floor, so I won't have to deal with stars. She said she'll take care of me. That's a good plan. That's a very good plan. But again, something Dantatan Songrin, Patrisons, Datantan, you won't be able to dive. You'll need help with best tasks. The words 2 days before the surgery, I was at home packing a small bag for my hostel stay. I was trying to decide which data gown to bring, which slippers would be most comfortable, whether I needed 1 book or 2 for the recovery period. Danton, preferred them. Danton, 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 Danton. Fees. In 48 hours, everything would be different. That's when my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Emma, my granddaughter, standing on my front porch. She was alone. Danton. She was odd. She never came over alone. She was only 9 years old. How had she gotten here? Where was Jeff Farron? Danton. 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 What's wrong? Danton. Where's your mom? Does she know you're here? Her face was red and puffy from crying. Dn't. Her cheeks blotchy and streaked with tears. More tears were streaming down her face. Dn't. In Sarah's house, Emma sobbed, her voice hatching. She thinks I'm working on a school project. Grandma, I need to tell you something. Something really bad. Something scary. My heart dropped into my stomach. Had something happened at school? Had someone hurt her? Had she been bullied? Coniston, honey, come sit down and tell me what's wrong. I pulled her instant and sat her down on the couch, the same couch where I used to read her bedme stories when she was little. The same couch where she'd fallen asleep, watching Dinstey movies with me. Dozens of times, her head on my lap, I stroked her hair. I sat next to her and put my arm around her shoulders. What a fate, honey. You can tell me anything. Whatever tends, we'll figure it out together. I promise. Emma looked at me with huge, frightened brown eyes that reminded me so much of David when he was little. Grandma, I need to tell you something about Daddy. Something I heard. Okay, what about Daddy? Is he okay? Did something happen? Grandma, she whispered, looking around like she was afraid that someone might hear us even though we were completely alone. My house. Daddy's not sick. Mimey stopped. The room seemed to tilt. I felt like I was falling even though I was son. Dn't. Odd after they thought Lucas and I were asleep. But I wasn't asleep. I got up to get water, and I heard them in Samaritan. Denton. You hear, Emma? Tell me exactly what you heard. I heard Daddy say. She paused, swallowing hard, fresh tears running down her face. Daddy said, once she's sorny. Danton. Buddy son. Danton.
Oh, her jewelry is in the top drawer of her dresser. Mom never wears it anymore anyway. Then at the home office, that's where she keeps all her financial documents and the deed to the house.
The room was spinning. I felt like I might throw up. Emma, are you absolutely certain that's what you heard? Could you have misunderstood? Could they have been talking about something else? She shook her head violently, more tears flying from her eyes. No, Grandma, I know what I heard. And there's more. Mommy said, what about the kidney? The actual surgery? And Daddy, Emma's voice broke, and she started sobbing harder. Daddy laughed. Grandma, he laughed and said, there's a guy named Mug in Mexico who'll pay $200,000 for a healthy kidney from a lambing donor. He already has a buyer lined up. Some rich guy whose kidneys are flopping. Once we get Mom's kidney out, Mangil takes Ain, and we get the money within 24 hours. Plus, once she's weak and drugged up from surgery, we can get her to sign the house over to us. She'll be so out of sight, she won't even know what she's signing. We tell her it's just hospital paperwork. I thought I was going to pass out. My vine was going dark around the edges. My own son, my baby, the child I had cared for 9 months and brought into this world and raised and loved unconscious, only was planning to mutilate me and rob me and steal my home. Emma, I whispered, barely able to get the words out. Are you absolutely positive? Face, son, something you dreamed. Armagand, I'm positive, Grandma. I swear. And Mommy said, what if she finds out? What if she resigns Daddy's sign Merle's sack? And Daddy said, Emma was sobbing so hard she could barely get the words out. Daddy said, she won't find out. Mom's too trusting. She'd never suspect her own son would lie about something like this. And by the time she resigns what happened, we'll have the money and the house. And there's nothing she can do about. We can always say we had her permission. Who's going to be a confused old woman over her own son? I pulled Emma into my arms, holding her while she cried, but my mind was confused old woman. Is that how my son saw me? As some confused old woman he could manipulate and rob and discard. Emma, I said, pulling back to look at her tear-stained face. Does anyone else know you're here? Does Lucas know? Does anyone know you came to tell me? She shook her head, wumming her nose on her sleeve. No. I told Mommy I was running my bic to Sarah's house to work on our science project. I rode here instead. It took me almost 20 minutes because I had to run really fast. Grandma, please don't do the surgery. Please, they're going to hurt you. I held her face in my hands, looking into those innocent brown eyes. This brave, beautiful little girl had ridden her bic 3 miles to warn me, knowing she could get in trouble, knowing her parents would be furious if they found out. She had chosen to protect me over protecting herself. Emma, I need you to do something very important for me. Something very hard. Can you do that? She nodded, snuffing. I need you to go home and act completely normal. You can't tell them you came here. You can't tell them you told me what you heard. You have to pretend everything's fine. Can you do that? Can you pretend? But Grandma, what about the surgery? You can't go. They'll hurt you. They'll steal your kidney. Don't worry, sweetheart. I have a plan. I'm going to make sure they can't hurt me. But I need Timmy to prepare and I need them to go. Exactly the way they planned it. That means you have to be very brave and very quiet. This is going to be really hard. You're going to have to see them and talk to them and act like you don't know anything. Can you do that for me? She nodded slowly, but she looked scared. What are you going to do? I'm going to stop them. I'm going to make sure they face consequences for what they were planning to do. But I need proof. Real proof, not just your word against. I need to catch them actually doing to understand. I think so. And Emma, Fett, at any point you feel scared or unsafe, you call me Madoted. Day or night, I don't care what, Timmy. You call me and I'll come get you. Do you understand? Yes, Grandma. She hugged me one more, Timmy, squeezing me so tight. I love you, Grandma. You're the only one who remembers my dearest Timmy. You're the only one who actually listens to me when I talk. You're the only one who really loves me. My heart broke into a million pieces. Your parents love you, sweetheart. They're just confused right now. They've made some very bad choices. No, they don't love me. They don't love anyone except money. Last month was my birthday. And they forgot, completely forgot. But you remembered. You sent me that card with the $20. And that book I wanted about horses. You never forget. It was true. I had remembered Emma's birthday. Luck, I remembered every important date. I had a calendar on my refrigerator with every birthday, every school event, every soccer game, marked in different colored pens. Emma's birthday, Lucas's birthday, Dave's birthday, Robert's birthday, even though he was gone. Our anniversary, even though I was alone now. After Emma left, I sat in my living room for a long time, staring at the walls, at the photos of Dave throughout his life. Dave did, as a baby. Dave did's first day of kindergarten. Dave did, in his little league, uniform. Dave did, graduating from high school. Dave did, on his wedding day, with Jeff first. Both of them smiling, looking so happy and hopeful. When had me and all gone wrong? When had my son turned to someone who could plan something so monstrous? Or had he always been like this, and I just been too bland to seize tail? Then I packed up my phone and made 3 calls that would change everything. The first was to my lawyer, Thomas Richardson. Thomas had been Robert's and my lawyer for 30 years. He'd handled our house purchase, our wills, Robert's estate, after he died. He was in Nina slaughtered fits, now close to Rickfund, but his blood was still sharp as a tack. Thomas, I need you to come to my house tonight, and to bring a notary. I need to change some things, everything. Actually, My will, my power of attorney, all of tent. There was a long pause on the line. Margaret, what's going on? Fast sounds urgent. It's serious. More serious than you can magni. Can you come around 8 p.m.? I'll explain everything when you get here. I'll be there. The second call was to my old friend Detective Sarah Matchell from the police department. Sarah and I had met rather 2 years ago, when she'd come to our neighborhood to give a present on home security after there'd been a string of burglars. We'd stayed friends ever since, meeting for coffee once a month, exchanging Christmas cards, attending each other's important life events. She'd been at David's wedding. She'd been at Robert's funeral, holding my hand while I cried, Sarah, I need your help. Police help. Awful, awful, and I need you to keep this completely confidential. No one can know, not your colleagues, not your superiors, no one until I say, it's okay. Margaret, you're scarring me. Are you okay? Are you safe? Do you need me to come over right now? I'm safe right now, but I need to tell you something that's going to shock you. Something terrible. Can you come to my house today? Round 8:30, after my lawyer gets here. I'll be there. Margaret, whatever this is, we'll handle it. I promise. The third call was to my nephew Marcus, my sacr, Slanda's son. Marcus worked in hostel, administrative, Anand Eofton, hostel, the same hostel where my surgery was scheduled. He was 35 years old, martyred 2 young hounds, and he'd always been such a good boy. Responsible, trustworthy. Marcus, it's Aunt Margaret, I need a huge favor. A massive favor. And you cannot tell anyone. Not your wife, not your mother, not anyone. Can you promise me that? Aunt Margaret, you're freaking me out. What's wrong? Are you okay? I need you to come to my house tonight, but frowned at around 9 p.m. And Marcus, this is going to involve you doing something that could cost you your job, something that could get you in serious trouble, but I wouldn't ask first. Wasn't absolutely necessary. There was a long silence. Does this have something to do with your surgery? With Uncle Dave? Yes, but I can't explain over the phone. I need to tell you in person. Will you come? Another pause. I'll be there. Whatever you need, Aunt Margaret. Uncle Robert helped me pay for college when my student loans weren't enough. He co-started my first apartment lease, when no one else would. He was there at my wedding, holding my mom while she cried. I owe him everything, and I owe you everything. I'll be there. That night, my room became a war room, a place where we planned to stop the worst betrayal I'd ever experienced. Thomas arrived first at exactly 8 p.m., always punctual, carrying Nun's worn leather briefcase, full of legal documents. He sat down at my kitchen table and looked at me with concern written all over his face, Hound's gray eyebrows, knotted together. Margaret, what's going on? In 30 years I've never seen you look like this. I told him everything. Every single word Emma had said. Every detail of the plan Dodd and Jennifer had concocted to steal my kidney, sell bent to criminals, rob my house, and manipulate me into sacking over my property. Haas' face went from concern to horrified to absolutely furious. His hands clenched into fists on the table. That son of a... He stopped himself, taking a deep breath. I'm sorry, Margaret. I know he's your son. But what they're both planning, is one of the most despicable, evil things I've ever heard in my entire career. And I've been practicing law for 40 years. I need to change everything tonight. I said, my voice steady now. My will, my power of attorney. Everything. I need to make sure that something goes wrong. Something happens to me. Dodd doesn't get a single penny. Constare, who do you want as your benefactors? Emma and Lucas. Everything goes into a trust for them. Not Dodd and Jennifer. The Constare can't it, can't manage it. Not until Emma and Lucas turn 25. And I want you to be the trustee. Thomas, you're the only person I trust with fins. Thomas nodded, already pulling out forms from Hugh's briefcase. What about your power of attorney? Who do you want to make Meckel and Fanstel? Dodson's for you if you're incapacitated and unable to make them yourself. You and Sarah Mitchell, I trust both of you with my life. Done. We'll have everything drawn up and sacr intent. What else do you need? Sarah outed in next, still in her work clothes, a pants sodden and comfortable shoes. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and sharp eyes that missed absolutely not. The injig after 25 years as a detective. She sat down with a notebook, her pen ready. Tell me everything, she said in her professional cop voice. Start from the beginning and don't leave anything out. I told her the same story I'd told Thomas. She listened without interrupting, wrote notes in her quick, efficient handwriting, occasionally asking clarifying questions about timing and exact words. When I finished, she sat back and let out a long breath. Margaret, this is conspiracy to commit fraud, grand theft, elder abuse, and possibly legal organ trap. These are serious federal crimes. But we have a problem. We need evidence. Real, solid, documented evidence. Right now, it's just Emma's word against 2 adults. Any defense lawyer would tear apart a 9-year-old's testimony in about 5 minutes. They'd say she misunderstood. She was dreaming, she made it up for attention. That's where Marcus comes here, I said. Marcus hourred at 9 p.m. exactly, looking nervous and worried. He was a slum man with dark hair and he was father's kind eyes. He sat down on my couch, running his hands. Aunt Margaret, you said this was important. Used to could cost me my job. I told him the story for the third time that night. With each telling, Taunted felt more real and more horrible. His face went completely pale. All the color drained from Hugh's cheeks. Uncle Dotted was going to do that to you. But he's family. He's my cousin. Why would he? Greed, Sarah said flatly, her voice hard. I've been a detective for 25 years. I've seen it 100 times, 1,000 times. People do terrible, unthinkable things for money. Family, betraying family, children robbing parents. It's more common than you'd think. Marcus, I said, reaching across to take his hand. I need your help. I need to catch them Feeney act, but I can't actually go through with the surgery. I need you to help me fakey shirt. He stared at me, his mouth open. Fakey shirt, fakey, candy transplant surgery. Aunt Margaret, that's it. That's Marson. That's possible. Do you know how many people would have to be involved? How many systems I'd have to access and manipulate? If anyone finds out I false medical records, I could lose my license, go to jail, never work in healthcare again. I know, I said, quietly. I know what I'm asking. And filming, 'tis too much. But if you can't do tent, I understand completely. I won't hold hand against you. You have a family to think about. You have Canning, who need the word father. Marcus looked down at Hugh's hands for a long moment. The room was completely slunt except for the tech running of the clock on my wall. Finally, he looked up, his jaw set, with determined tenon. Uncle Robert helped me when no one else would, when I was struggling to pay for medical school. When the loans weren't enough, and I was going to have to drop out, he gave me $15,000. He said it was a effort, not a loan, because he believed in me. He came to my graduation and cred when I got my degree. He was there when both my Cannings were born, showing up at the hostel at 3 a.m. with coffee and donuts for everyone. He was more of a father to me than my own dad ever was. Marcus eyes. I'll do it, for you and for Uncle Robert's memory. I'll do whatever it takes. For the next 4 hours, we planned every single detail of the operation. Marcus explained, the tech demo Slotin, speaking quickly and passionately, as he warmed to the plan. Here's what I can do. I can access the hostile surgery scheduling system. I can mark your real surgery as cancelled due to a last-minute medical concern that only you and Dr. Reeves know about. Then I can create a fake surgery, Marcus Place, a ghost entry that looks completely real, in all our systems. When down and Jennifer check the surgical board, or access the hostile portal, They'll see you're scheduled for operating room 3 at 8 a.m. But OR 3 will actually be empty. We'll take you to a private observatan room instead, one of the family consultant rooms, on the fourth floor that has monitors and equipment. Sarah was nodding, marking notes. I can get you a worker sherry, hostel grade, record tanning, completely hidden, no bigger than a button. We'll put in your hostel gown, it'll record everything said and your pre-op room. Every word David and Jennifer say before the surgery will be documented. I can also help with surveillance. Marcus added, I can make sure David and Jennifer are placed in a profit family marking room, one of the VIP ones. Those rooms have security cameras and auto recording for liberty purposes. If they discuss the plan while balding for your surgery to finish, we'll have it all on tape. What about the house? I asked. They're planning to rob me while I'm supposedly in surgery. We need to catch them doing that too. Sarah smiled grimly. I'll have onions ready. Plan close off. And unmarked cars, posted around your neighborhood. We'll pre-install hidden cameras in your house. Tomorrow while you're at your final pre-op appointment, we'll let David and Jennifer enter the residence and actually start stealing your property before we move tenant. We want them on camera canning grand theft. We want documented evidence of them taunting your jewelry, your documents, everything. Won't they not sip the cameras? I asked. There'll be tanny hidden and smoke detectors and wall clocks and picture frames, professional surveillance equipment. David and Jennifer will never see them. They'll walk right past them without a clue. We worked on 2 a.m. going over every detail, every possible thing that could go wrong, every contingency plan. Thomas drew up new legal documents, and I signed on, with his paralegal as the notary witness. My new left everything to Emma and Lucas, and trust. My new power of attorney gave authority to Thomas and Sarah, removing David completely. When they finally left, I sat alone in my quiet house. The house Robert and I had flooded with 42 years of love and memories. The house you wanted to steal from me. I went into David's old bedroom, the room I'd kept as a sort of shrine to his childhood. There were still posters on the walls from his teenage years, rock bands, and movie stars that probably nobody remembered anymore. His old baseball trophies, lined a shelf, little gold figures frozen and mended swanning, or mended patch, photos of him and his fry school friends, all of them so young and full of hope. I sat on his old bed, the mattress sagging slightly under my weight, and looked around at the remnants of his childhood. Where had I gone wrong? What had I done or failed to do that led him down this path? But then I thought about Emma. Sweet, brave, beautiful Emma, who had risked getting in trouble to protect me, who had ridden her back 3 miles to warn me, who had chosen to do the right thing, even though it was hard and scary. She was growing up in the same house as David, with the same parents, and she had turned out completely different. She had integrity and courage and compass on. Maybe it wasn't about how David was raised. Maybe some people are just born with a moral compass, and others aren't. Or maybe David had made a series of small choices over the years, choices that seemed inconvenient at the team but that gradually led him further and further away from the person I'd raised him to be. Small compromises, small laws, small acts of selfishness that grew bigger and bigger. She became someone who could look his own mother in the eye and plan to mutilate her for money. Those were his choices, not mine. I couldn't blame myself for the choices he made as a grown adult. I got up and walked out of his room, closing the door firmly beyond me. That chapter of my life was ending. The David I had raised was gone, if he'd ever really existed at all. The man who was planning to rob me was a stranger who happened to share my DNA. The morning of the surgery arrived. I woke up at 5 a.m., even though I didn't need to be at the hospital until 7. I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, starting at the ceiling, thinking about everything that was about to happen, thinking about the fact that today would change everything forever. I showered and dressed carefully, in comfortable clothes, like they'd instructed, sweatpants and a loose t-shirt and slip-on shoes. I packed my small overnight bag with a nightgown and slippers and my phone charger, packing it exactly like I would if I were really going to be recovering from major surgery. Because David and Jennifer were watching. They were always watching, making sure I followed the plan, making sure I didn't suspect anything. David picked me up at 6:30 a.m. and his silver Honda. He looked weird, like he hadn't slept well either. Dark circles under his eyes, his hair uncombed, but there was also a nervous energy about him. A tension in his shoulders and jaw. "Ready, Mom?" he asked as I climbed into the passenger seat, setting my bag at my feet. "Ready as I'll ever be, honey." He reached over and squeezed my hand. His palm was sweaty. Thank you so much for doing this. I know I keep saying it, but I can't say it enough. You're saving my life today, Mom. You're giving me a future." I squeezed back, looking at him, trying to see any hint of the little boy I'd loved. "You're my son. I'd do anything for you. You know that." We drove to the hostel in relative silence. David kept glancing at his phone, checking the time over and over. Was he counting down the minutes until he could rob me? Jennifer was already at the hostel when we arrived, waiting in the main lobby. She drove in separately because she supposedly needed to drop the cats off at school first. But I knew the real reason. They needed 2 cars, one to stay at the hostel, maintaining the illusion that they were devoted family members, one to doctive to my house and load up with stolen property. At the hostel, they settled me into a pre-op room on the 2nd floor. It was a small space with a hostel bed, some medical equipment, and 2 chairs for fielders. The walls were pale blue, supposedly calming. But nothing about the section was calm. The nurse who came in to prep me was actually often Chen, a detective from Sarah's Anton, undercover in pale blue scrubs with her badge and gun headman. Sarah had explained that Linda had worked undercover before, that she was good at playing roles. "Mrs. Patterson, I'm Nurse Willems, and I'm going to prep you for surgery today," she said loudly, professionally, for David and Jennifer's Bennett. Then she leaned in close while adjusting my hostel gown and whispered, so quietly I could barely hear, "The words sewn into the collar of your gown. The button on the right said, 'Don't touch.' It's recording everything. We're getting all of this." I nodded slightly, careful not to give anything away. David and Jennifer sat in the 2 Vienna chairs next to my bed. They were both on her phones constantly, texting back and forth even though they were sitting right next to each other. Were they coordinating, making final plans? Confirming the current Bauman. "Are you scared, Mom?" David asked, finally looking up from his phone. "A little," I admitted, which was true. I was terrified, but not of surgery. I was terrified of what I was about to discover about my son. About how far his betrayal truly went. But mostly I'm just ready. Ready to help you. Ready for you to be healthy again. "You're the bravest person I know," he said, and half I hadn't known the truth, I would have believed the mood in his voice. He was a good actor, they both were. Jennifer stood up, gathering her purse. "I'm going to get some coffee from the cafeteria." "David, come with me. Your mom should rest before the surgery." "I'm Maman," I said. "You don't have to leave. We all meanest," Jennifer said. Firmly, her small knot quite reaching her eyes. "You need to conserve your energy. We'll be right back, just few minutes." As soon as they left the room, often nodding on. They just left the floor, we're tracking them on security cameras. They're heading to the cafeteria, but they're not getting coffee. They're in a corner, looking at David's phone together. We can't see the screen from the camera angle, but based on her body language, they're looking at something important. "The hostile computer system," I whispered back, "most likely. Davda's a lusted family member on your field. He has access to the patent portal. He's probably checking to confirm your surgery timing, your operating room number, affinated durayonin of surgery, making sure everything is going according to schedule, so they know exactly when to go to your house. My stomach churned with nausea. My own son, checking surgery schedules. Look, he was planning a hosp, which I suppose he was. 20 minutes later, Marcus came wearing full surgical scrubs, a mask covering the lower half of his face, and a surgical cap covering his mouth. I wouldn't have recognized. Mrs. Patterson, we're ready for you, he announced loudly in a professional doctor voice I'd never heard use before. David and Jennifer rushed back into the room, both looking slightly out of breath. Already, Jennifer said, sounding, I thought surgery wasn't scheduled. 8:30. We're running ahead of schedule today. Marcus said smoothly, Dr. Reeves wants to get started early. Mrs. Patterson, are you ready? I'm ready, I said. Davded came over to the bed and hugged me, carefully. Surgeon Chen had inserted in my arm for show. They sacred, Mom sacrs. Really, Kane, thank you so much. I love you. I love you more than anything. I love you too, honey. I said, hugging him back, wondering if was the last time I'd ever hug my son. Wonderful. After today, we'd be strangers to each other. Jennifer leaned down and kissed my cheek, her lips cold against my skin. When you wake up, everything will be different, Margaret. Everything will be so different. You'll see, she was right. Everything would be different. Just not in the way she and they. They wheeled my bed out of the room and down the long hallway toward the operating rooms. David and Jennifer walked along my gurney, both quiet now, both watching everything carefully. The fluorescent lights passed overhead in a steady rhythm. Other hostel staff nodded and slid as we passed. We arrived at the double doors marked operating room 3, authorized personnel. Only beyond thump point. This was the moment. The point of no return. An anesthesia of cadast. I didn't recognize. Probably another undercover often dies. Leaned over me with a surgeon. Miss Patterson, I'm going to give you something to help you relax now. I need you to count backwards from 10 for me. Can you do that? 10, I said, my voice steady. David and Jennifer stood at the doors, watching through the small windows, both of the boffer faces pressed close to the glass. No, I continued. Their hands were clasped together, Jennifer's knuckles white from grappling so hard. 8, 7, 6. The doors began to swing closed between us, blocking both of you. 4. But I never reached 0. I never lost consciousness, because this wasn't a real Anisonovering. This was all theater, all performance, all elaborate deception to catch 2 people I'd loved. In the worst betrayal. Minimable. The moment the doors closed, and David and Jennifer couldn't see me anymore, the order thence wheeled my gurney quickly down a different hallway, away from the operating rooms, toward the elevators. We went up to the 4th floor, to a private family consultant room that had been converted into a temporary observation post. Sarah was already there, watching with multiple video monitors, and recording a program spread across a conference table. There were laptops showing different camera feeds, and auto-benpent, with headphones. How are you holding up, Margaret? She asked, helping me set up on the gurney. I'm okay. I'm ready. Let's see what they do. Let's see who my son really. Sarah pulled up several video feeds on the monitors. This one's the hostel parking garage. This one's the family watching room, where they'll be taken. This one's the GPS tracker we placed on David's car yesterday, while you were at your appointment. and she gestured to 4 more screens. These are the cameras we installed in your house. Living room, bedroom, home office, and front hallway. We watched the watching room feed. David and Jennifer were being escorted by a hostile volunteer to a private family watching area. A nice room with comfortable couches, and a coffee machine for areas. It was one of the VIP watching rooms, reserved for families of parents and lengthy surgeries. The volunteer explained that they could watch at comfort, that someone would come update them every hour on my progress, that the surgery would take approximately 4 hours total. 4 hours. That's how long they thought they had. As soon as the volunteer left, David pulled out his phone. We watched him on the monitor, saw him showing something on his screen to Jennifer. We can't hear them yet, Sarah said. The ordinary room is on a fair. Now good second delay for some technical reason. What for tear? Hour. 30 seconds later, the awkward Dutton, the feared, the southern stream, at his phone. She's seen. Surgery now. The hospital app shows she's seen or 3. Surgery in progress. We have 4 hours minimum, 1 hour for the actual kidney removal. 2 hours in recovery before she wakes up, plus buffer time. Should we go now? Jennifer asked, her voice eager. Let's wait 10 more minutes. Just to be absolutely sure. We tell the volunteer we're going to get breakfast. We'll be gone for then it's my hour. If anyone asks later, we went to that dinner 2 blocks away. We were stressed and needed to eat, perfectly normal. We watched them sitting there, both checking the phones, obsessively, both fan injecting with nervous energy. They were like criminals waiting for the perfect moment to strike, which, I suppose, is exactly what they were. Exactly 10 minutes later, David stood up. Okay, let's go. Remember the plan. We go on, we take only what we can carry. We're on and out in under an hour. We'll come back for the rest later after she's seen it's everything over. They left the waiting room and headed toward the parking garage. Sarah switched to the GPS feed, and we watched the little dot representing David's car begin to move. They're heading toward your neighborhood, Sarah narrated, speaking into a radio to her team. All hands stand by. Let them enter the residence. Let them begin taking property. We want them on camera counting the crimes. Do not move, and Tanton. They've stolen multiple things, and we have clear video documentation of theft. 23 minutes later, the GPS showed David's car stopped, Anna. My address. Sarah switched to the camera feed, showing my front porch. We watched David and Jennifer get out of the car, both looking around nervously to make sure no one was watching. It was 9 a.m. on a weekday. Most of the neighbors were at work or running errands. They'd timed perfectly. David used his key to open my front door. They stepped and stand my house, my sanctuary, the place where Robert and I had built our life together. The enter cameras activated. I watched them enter my living room. Both carrying empty bags, both looking around the lake. Thieves can target. Okay, we have 4 hours. David said again, checking ends, watch obsessively. But we need to work fast. We don't want to be here longer than necessary. Starting on the bedroom like we planned. Jewelry first. Jennifer ran up my stairs, taking them 2 at a time. Her footsteps loud on the hardwood. I watched her enter my bedroom. The room where Robert and I had slept together for 40 years. The room where I still slept on my sand of the bed. Even though his and sand had been empty for 4 years. The room where I'd cried myself to sleep for months after he died. She went straight to my dresser and pulled open the top drawer. My jewelry box was there, the wooden box with flowers carved on the lid that Robert had given me for our 20th year anniversary. She dumped it out onto my bed, without ceremony, without care. All my treasures, the necklace Robert gave me for our 10th anniversary, with a small diamond pendant, the bracelet from our earrings from our 20th, the sacr ramen from our 20th, the sacr ramen from our 20th, the emerald necklace from our 40th, anniversary, then to me, just months before he died. My mother's pearl earrings that she'd given me on my wedding day. Something old, she'd said, pressing them into my palm. These belong to your grandmother. She wore them when she married your grandfather. Now they're yours. One day, you'll give them to your daughter, or your daughter-in-law. My grandmother's gold watch, the one that had survived 2 world wars and 3 generations, that didn't even work anymore. But that I kept because to us was a piece of my story, a connection to people I'd loved and lost. All of Todd, thrown to a garbage bag like trash.